You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
I am here with Luke Charlton, the Aussie hermit himself. And I'm actually going to start you off with asking about this story of why they call you the Aussie hermit. We're going to get into what you do. If you guys are listening to this right now, you're a real estate investor, you are doing online marketing. Luke is absolutely incredible doing what he does in terms of Facebook ads, copywriting, email marketing. There's so much we're going to dig into. So we'll get into all the tactical fun stuff in a little bit. I want to start with the Aussie hermit story. I read a little bit about
Aussie hermit.
Aussie. I'm sorry. Aussie, not Aussie. This is my kinetic accent.
Well, yeah, get it right. No, so the Aussie hermit is because I'm a hermit. Well, I guess it's pretty straightforward. I just like to spend time inside. And so it's kind of exaggerating my personality a bit there for entertainment effect. It's also a way for people to remember me, right? The Aussie hermit. I'm Australian. I'm a hermit and I'm Australian. So put those two things together, the Aussie hermit, pretty straightforward. And then just calling myself that for a bit of an entertainment in my email. So I use a lot in my emails for my community. So entertainment and just as a way for people to remember me. Yeah.
It's a good example, right, of kind of setting yourself apart with a brand a little bit, which is something we talk about.
Exactly right. Yeah. That helps you, as I said, remember, stand out, that type of thing. So,
well, all right. So we're going to come back to that because so if you're listening to this, you're in the audience. I keep saying, if you're listening to this, if you're not listening to it, you can't. Yeah. But if you're listening to this, put a pin in the whole Aussie hermit thing, the branding thing, the standing out thing, because I want to try to come back to that. So, all right. So Luke Charlton, and I want to put this out here real early in the show. If you are interested in learning more about Facebook ads, reaching out to Luke, or maybe having him work with you, you can reach him at Luke, which is Luke, Luke at lukecharlton.com. So I want to talk a little bit about what you do. Give us the kind of 30,000 foot overview for someone who's not familiar with you and the work that you do. Kind of let people.
There's two parts of my business. So I run ads for a small handful of clients. I don't have an agency. I prefer to work closely with those higher level clients where I will actually run ads for them, right? So I'll write their copy. I will manage the ads. So I've been doing that since 2016. Spent over $16 million on ads. And generally there are other coaches and experts. I have worked with some real estate and mortgage brokers as well, mortgage businesses. So I run their ads for them. And then I also work with them kind of like as a consultant, advising them on what to do after the ad campaigns, right? Because it's not just about getting the click. That's the beginning of the ad campaign. That's not where it ends. And I think that's where a lot of that's what differentiates me maybe from a lot of other advertisers is like, someone just hires them to, write an ad and manage it. But it's what comes after the click, and not even just that first landing page. It's like what happens once they get onto your email list. How are you then, increasing the lifetime customer value of those people that are coming onto your email list? And then what are you selling to those customers after that? So I kind of help consult them throughout that whole, because that's the whole advertising campaign. That's really what you've got to look at it as, especially in today's market where the ad campaigns are so expensive. You really have to have a back end in place to be profitable. And then that's the first part of the business. And the other part is I coach other people how to run profitable ad campaigns, basically. And I keep that system is really simple. It's really just start by building your list with quality leads and then emailing your list consistently. I don't teach, complex funnels, webinars, book funnels. I mean, I've done them and I've created 7-figure campaigns with them for clients, all the funnels you can imagine. But for coaches and experts, real estate agents under 6 figures, just keep it simple is what I coach on that side of the business. And then once you're above 6 figures, sure, do the more complex stuff.
It's interesting that you point out that so much of the so much of the marketing life cycle, right? So much of the sales cycle is after they become a lead. And it's something that tracks for real estate investors as well, where on average, about 60% of the deals that an investor is going to do from the leads that they generate online are going to come anywhere between like 2 and 6 months after that person actually converts and becomes a lead, right? So when you look out, you've obviously worked with a ton of different businesses in real estate, out of real estate, got a ton of experience, like you said, $16 million in ad spend. So when you look out at the marketing that people are typically doing, is the biggest mistake that they make simply not following up or emailing enough? Or like, where do people typically fall down in the kind of long-term life cycle of a sale?
I literally just been redoing my webinar presentation to sell the course that I just mentioned, my email course. And I've been working on the bit where I talk about this actually, about how, have you heard of Chet Holmes at all?
Ultimate Sales Machine.
So Chet Holmes, he was Tony Robbins' business partner, for those that don't know, and he's not alive anymore, but he had this thing that he called the buyer's pyramid. And when I first read about this, I was really struggling in business because I was trying all these complex funnels. This is like back in 2014. And I read this thing that Chet put together called the buyer's pyramid. And basically he said that in any market, because he worked in many, many different markets, did a lot of research. And he basically said in any one market at any time, the market broke down like this, right? So 3% of people are ready to buy today. Then the next 6 to 7% are open to buying. Then the next 30% are, they're kind of like the researchers. They're not ready to buy, but they're kind of like looking around. And the next 30%, like not thinking about it. And the final 30%, they just won't buy. And so what everyone tries to do is they go after the 3%, right? And that maybe 67% that are open because they're so desperate for clients. But the real opportunity is in that next 30% because no one goes after that, right? That's like the blue ocean. The researchers that aren't ready today, but will buy one day, as you said, usually that's like, maybe say 2 weeks to 6 months out. You don't know when they're going to buy. And that's the thing. You don't know when they're going to buy, but they will buy. So how do you ensure that they think about you when they buy? And it's very simple and everyone's heard about it, but they don't do it and you follow up, right? And the number one way to follow up online is with email. Even today, even with bots and all the other tech, SMS, email is the number one way. That's why it's still the most profitable marketing method. So you have to have email as part of your advertising campaign if you want to be as profitable as possible. So in terms of like, what was your question? What's the number one mistake that they're making?
Yeah.
When it comes to their ad campaigns, was that the question?
Yeah, or just in that long-term kind of follow-up process. I think I said.
Yeah, just not implementing one, I guess. Not implementing one. Yeah. And so what I teach is as the first thing in your business, because it's so important, because that's where most prospects are. They're not ready to buy today, but they will be, is you have to have a follow-up sequence. Like that's your first marketing. It's not a funnel. Even though funnels can be great, it's getting an email list and following up consistently, getting that in place first, and then you add funnels later. So yes, I would just say having a follow-up sequence and then just sending, I send one email per day. And the way that I send emails is a bit different to what a lot of people are used to because you can't really send emails like you could maybe 10, 15 years ago where you just sending content because people get bombarded with so much content, so many marketing messages. Right. You have to email differently than what you did before. And we can talk about that if you want. You have to email in the way.
Well, let me maybe transition to that because I want to take a step back. I'm personally very curious and I really want to hear what you're about to say. But I think I'm gonna try to do the audience a solid. Let me walk back a little bit. So what you were saying, right? It's so critically important, I think, for real estate investors to hear right now. And so when real estate investors go out and they try to find leads that are going to turn into deals, the literal name for what they are looking for is a motivated seller. It's a motivated, right? And the sort of definition of a motivated seller I always use is like the ideal lead for an investor is someone who, the mob is coming to their house tomorrow to kill them and they need to sell the house and flee the country, right? And so that's what they're looking for. But you were using the pyramid. I always use the metaphor of a sort of like a dartboard, where I'm like, motivated seller is the bullseye. It's right in the center of the board.
Yeah.
But most of the board is not motivated, right? There are varying degrees of researching, thinking, maybe someday. And most investors have absolutely no process whatsoever for targeting anything other than just like you said, the tiniest top part of that pyramid, people who are the most motivated. So if you are going to sit down with an investor and they're saying, hey, Luke, I target motivated sellers and that's great. I have nothing in place for anybody else. Nothing. Where would you tell them to start? Is it like market research? Is it just reaching out to an existing list? Like, how would you walk someone through maybe like the first 2 or 3 steps? Yeah.
So that's a good question. So when it comes to ads, I got a great case study example of this, because I think even if you target motivated sellers, and I think that's really great, and this is what I help my clients do, there will still be people that won't buy right away. So let me give you an example. So a client recently hired me to run her ads, and her system to get clients is very simple. It's basically just advertise like a free guide on Facebook, and then they just go down an email autoresponder. It's like 1 email a day for 45 days. And what she sells is a done for you, like she'll do a lot of the work to set up the e-commerce store. So this is people that have never really run an online business before. So it's really like it's a done for you. It's a very high price offer. Its minimum is 15 grand, I think it is.
Okay.
And they do a lot of the work for you. So when she hired me, the lead magnet they were using, the free guide, was called like 7 profitable e-commerce niches. And that's great to target people that are kind of like in research mode, like kind of figuring out like what type of e-commerce store would I want to do. That's fine. But what I did is like, because her ad results weren't that great and she wanted a better quality lead. She wanted people, as you said, these motivated buyers. So I said, well, let's change the free guide from that to something like, what are we using? We changed it to 9 e-commerce stores for sale. Okay. So one of the cool things that she does is on her website, she actually creates the e-commerce stores like ready to go. So people can kind of browse and go, oh yeah, I love to look at that. I want to buy that. So it's very cool. Like
that's cool
demonstration and proof. Yeah. To show, it's almost like a catalog or like a brochure type thing. So I said, let's just take those 9 sites that you have for sale, put them in like a free guide and just advertise that. But the point is, like, it's called 9 e-commerce stores for sale. So who's that going to appeal to? People looking to buy an e-commerce store that, know what an e-commerce store is, right? And are looking to buy. So they're motivated buyers. So we advertise that. And that's getting us, funnily enough, I didn't think it would actually get us our cheapest leads, but it actually is getting us quite, it's performing better in terms of lead cost than even the niche one, even though it's even though it's targeting more of a specific market. Generally, when you're targeting motivated buyers like that, your lead costs are a bit more expensive, but it's not a big deal because they're much higher quality. But anyway, so we build our list, and sure enough, we start getting much better appointments, and her ad campaigns are a lot more profitable. But here's the thing: not everyone jumping onto her list is a buyer, right? There's still some in that research mode that want to make sure that this is a good decision for them. So coming back to your question is like, if you're going to do like an advertising campaign like that, go after the buyers, like get them on your list. And just knowing that not everyone's going to buy, right? So you might as well go for the top quality leads and still have a follow-up process in place. And then once you've scaled that as high as it can go, then you can go out to use a more broader lead magnet. For example, I'm using like a lead magnet or a free guide.
Yeah,
but it could be like a webinar or whatever, something that generates leads to like the broader part of the market. So I would say like, yes, still go after the motivated buyers, get them on your list, and then you can scale out wider. Now, coming back to your question, what does that mean? Like, how do you scale out wider? That's where you would go to people that are more, so a motivated buyer is typically someone who is already knows the solution that they're after. Okay, so the example that I just gave is someone who knows that they want an e-commerce store and they're looking to buy. So they're generally solution. So for example, people who know that they want someone to run their Facebook ads for them, like that's a solution, that's a motivated buyer. Whereas the next kind of level down is a broader part of the market, is someone who has a problem, but they don't know what the solution is yet. Right. So to come back to answer your question, if you wanted someone who's a bit more of a researcher, that you're going to then have to, you can get, they're generally like cheaper leads. The downside of those leads is you have to educate them on why your solution is the best solution. Broader market, so it's much more scalable, but you have to do a lot of education.
Right.
And that's the market that I advertise to. So I advertise to coaches that want more clients. Generally, that's my advertising campaign. So that's a problem-focused market. So when they get on my email list, I have to educate them on why follow-up is the most important thing. And that is expensive. That's an expensive process. Ideally, you want to start with a solution-focused or a motivated-focused prospect, and then you scale out from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it strikes me right as what you're talking about, and someone may be listening to this and saying like, okay, that makes sense, but I really want people to think about the potential economic impact of this kind of shift in perspective, because like you said, right, you imagine again, you were mentioning that Chet Holmes sort of buyer's pyramid where the most motivated folks, buyers or sellers or whatever, are the 3 to 6% at the top. And those researchers, the people that are aware of the problem, not aware of the solution, they're 30%, right? Well, it's basic economics, particularly when you get into a PPC platform where you're bidding against other advertisers. If there's a bigger supply of potential clicks and leads, the cost of those is going to be significantly cheaper to generate, right? And so the cost per click on those folks, I assume, is going to be typically significantly lower. So even if a lower percentage of them are perhaps converting into deals immediately, your cost per lead might come down. And then if you convert them over time, that's a huge segment of the market compared to what your competitors are all sort of fighting over. Is that true?
Yeah, as I said, so I said I was surprised that the cost per lead was less expensive with that solution-focused market, because usually it's more expensive because there's a smaller market. But yeah, for the problem-focused markets, those broader markets, generally your lead cost is cheaper, or your click cost, and then subsequently your lead cost is cheaper because it is a broader market. So I run ads for a company, they're called Superfast Diet. They're Australia's #1 diet. And the lead cost there is super cheap, right? Because weight loss is such a broad market. If we're getting leads for more than like $1.50, that's way too expensive. So we're getting leads generally about $1 per email subscriber for advertising a lead magnet as an example. So it's all relative, right? So yeah, your lead costs will generally be a lot cheaper with the broader markets, which means that you don't have to convert at the same rate as the other more solution focused expensive leads. So it is all relative like that. You got to know your numbers.
Let's talk about email a little bit, because and this is where we get into the selfish portion of the podcast. Email's never been my thing. I've just never been particularly great at it. It's always been, in my marketer's toolbox, the thing that I'm sort of particularly bad at. And in a lot of my email follow-ups, I'm just like, look, it's another email for me. And I'll just put a picture of my face, all weird and creepy. It's fun. So, and I know for a fact that for most real estate investors, email follow-up is typically kind of a second thought, right? They're typically following up over text. Yeah. They might send an immediate email, but the kind of feeling is people won't respond to email or whatever. You said right in the beginning, email is still the best way to reach people online. So why is that the case? Do you feel like people,
when I say the best way
on email?
I didn't say the best way to reach them. I said the most profitable.
Okay, so the most profitable, right? So let's dig into that. What do people miss about email today? Because I'm sure people are gonna be like, oh, spam filters and Gmail's got the thing or whatever. People kind of throw up their hands. What do people miss about email as a marketing channel?
Well, let me come back to, because this is where a lot of people, when I said I didn't say the best way to reach them, because you could reach someone with an SMS, right, or a messenger, and they'll the open rate is whatever, 80%, 70%. Right. And that's what people say all the time. Well, messenger gets 70%, SMS. It's okay, but are you going to send someone an SMS or a messenger thing on Facebook or Instagram every single day? If you do that, they will get very, very annoyed. However,
and you'll get blocked probably, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly right. You get blocked. However, you can do that via email, right? Because email is a different medium. It's a medium where people are where they're expecting to receive content, right? So you can have short emails, you can have long emails. But the point is that's a medium that you can actually send them content, right? I couldn't send someone my 300 to 500 word email in Messenger or an SMS because, again, people would block you. But I can do that, and I can do it every single day via email. It's a different medium. So with that being said, how do you email correctly? So one of the things that I did when I read that Chet Holmes thing, I'm like, okay, I'm sick of the complex funnels. I just want something simple. I'm just going to build my list. I'm going to email consistently. I'm going to figure this thing out. Right. Well, my emails didn't convert in the beginning, and it was very frustrating because, like most business owners, we spend a lot of time on our emails. We send out really great content. It's great information. And what typically happens, right, is someone joins your email list and they'll read your open rate. If you track individual people, the open rate will be quite high for the first couple of weeks, and then it will just go like it'll just dive bomb, and your open rates start to go down. And that's the same thing that was happening with me. I was sending great content that was actually helping my market grow their business, but they were just tuning out. And so I obviously knew like what I was doing was not working. And the other thing that was really frustrating for me, I did some research. I wanted to do some research to find out like why that is. And so through this process of like finding out why aren't people paying attention, I kind of asked myself like, what are they paying attention to, right? And the things they're paying attention to are like social media, YouTube, hours a day on Netflix, watching movies. And I'm thinking, well, what they're spending tens of hours each week, hours a day on social media, Netflix, streaming. Right. And they can't even spend 5 minutes, reading my emails. Like, what's the deal here? What are these platforms, these social media companies, Hollywood, what are they doing that I'm not, right? The obvious answer is their content is entertaining. Mine isn't. Mine was just straight how-to content, right? So what I started doing is I thought, okay, how can I use this to my advantage? Instead of fighting against it, how can I use it to my advantage? Mm-hmm. How can I create emails that people actually want to read that are actually entertaining? And so that's what I started focusing on. Specifically, because I'm not a comedian, I'm not a stand-up comedian, I don't host my own late night show, right? I'm just a hermit that lives in a hole. In a cave.
We were going to come back to the hermit thing.
So how do I send entertaining emails?
Yeah.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. It's just too good to limit to one show. Join us next week to hear the rest.
This is the podcastfactory.com.